All right, we're back on our 12.5 project, and we have removed the laminated forefoot from its mold, and I've cut it into shape. I've applied the profile pattern to the side of it and cut the profile into it, and really the inside of the profile stayed exactly the same way it came off the mold, and it fits the boat perfectly just like that. So I've cut the profile on the outside of it, and then I've taken and tapered it because the forward end of it is quite a bit narrower than it is back aft here, see? So I'd just like to show you a few more things about it. This is what they call the bearding line right here. This is where the planking runs off the side of the stock. This is what they call the rabbit line, and this is sometimes called the apex line or the inside rabbit line. So that rabbit was actually cut right in place. I've had this put in there already and clamped it into position and actually reached behind the planking and things by springing the planking out of the way and reached behind it with a chisel and cut that rabbit in there. And then I used a scraper, and basically I used a scraper, a chisel, and a hacksaw blade. And you saw me just on the bench where I was using a hacksaw blade to tune some of the little lumps out of it. I was actually just using that hacksaw blade like a rasp. So I was rasping some smoothness into the rabbit line here. And the next thing we're about to do is spread some glue on it and put it back into position and clamp it in place. And that's it. We've decided that we're going to stick it into position with Total Boat thickened epoxy so that it doesn't move around at all afterwards, and we're able to take the clamps off of it, so when we go to bolt it in place we won't have clamps all over the place. And the first thing we're going to do is spread some thickened epoxy on top of the keel here and under the bottom of the stem up in this area. Okay, I'm just spreading this thickened epoxy on top of the keel here with a toothed trowel so I get an equal amount everywhere. And it just makes it so I don't have a big glob in one spot and none in another spot. Just distributing it around a little bit. Now I've got a little bit more. I've got to reach back aft here and spread a little bit more back aft. And it's going to be applied to both surfaces, so we can't really make a mistake. Now we're applying this thickened epoxy overhead here. And look how well it's just staying up there. Isn't that nice? Stop right there. Now we're going to apply some thickened epoxy to the top side of our forefoot right here where it contacts the stem. Just going to squeeze out a little bit on there like so. Pick up my trowel. Done. Now we've flipped it over and we're going to apply some to the underside of the forefoot where it sits against the keel here. I don't want to put too much on because I'll just be wiping it all off. Obviously, I've dispensed the proper amount of glue right straight out of the gun onto the surface, and it's pre-mixed, and now I'm just spreading it around with a trowel now. It spreads really nicely, and it's thick enough so that as I spread it, it doesn't fall off the edges of the piece that I'm trying to glue up and end up all over the bench or all over myself. And the other thing is great about it is when I pick it up, it doesn't fall off, or while I'm trying to install it or put it into position, it doesn't wipe away very, very easily. Just like that. I'll have to clean it up a little bit with some alcohol or something and get the excess off, and that'll be it. Once it's dry, I'll be able to remove the clamps and then do the drilling of holes. Now that we've slipped the forefoot into position, we've got it clamped off to the stem with 3 clamps and squeezed the glue right up really nicely. It's right in position. We centered it up. I've got 4 clamps back aft here holding the after sections of it in place. They're actually clamping the floor timbers right down against the top of the forefoot and sandwiching the whole pile together here. The keel against the forefoot and the floor timbers against the forefoot. So it's all in position. I've scraped off most of the glue, and then I can actually force the planking right into position. It's been in there before. I'm going to show you how it fits. There's the garboard plank right in position like that, holding itself right in position because it's got enough friction here. And Next thing we're going to do after this is all glued off, we're going to fasten the garboard plank into position. We're going to fasten this plank in place after I repair it, fasten the planking in on the starboard side, and then add the plank afterwards. I'm going to scarf it onto that plank right there so there's no butt block. There'll be no evidence of it. I've got it clamped up forward here, and I've left the cutwater area nice and square so that the clamps bear on it nice, and that'll all be just chafed off afterwards and shaped into position, and it should look great.